Climate change is a globally concerning issue, causing the melting of polar ice caps, a decrease in habitable areas for wildlife, and the focus of today, a decrease in plant yield. The United States leans heavily on the world in its own plant yield for crops. The effect global warming may have on plants could be catastrophic. One of the most well-documented areas for specific plant research is the International Rice Research Institute in the Philippines. It was found at the International Rice Research Institute that global warming has resulted in a higher average minimum temperature in a study completed from 1973 to 2003. The heightened temperature was found to affect rice crops very negatively. There are a group of viruses that can affect rice crops and are spread by a variety of leafhopper insects. 4 of these viruses include grassy stunt virus, orange leaf virus, tongue virus, and yellow dwarf virus. All of these viruses were determined to be well demonstrated compared to some examples of virus that were only suspected. A major dilemma presents itself. As the temperature increased, mortality of crops is increasing, yet infectivity is remaining similar to before global warming. This means there is hope for recovery, as the insects that generally spread the viruses do not necessarily flourish in the increased heat. This leaves potential for therapies for the crops to be developed. If the rice crops suffer from climate change, the diets of many countries that depend on rice as a staple may suffer health problems. This leads us to the importance of rice and other similar crops in diet.
It's concerning that global warming is diminishing the nutritional value and quantity of brown rice for 3 reasons. The first reason is that brown rice is one of the world's most consumed crops. In fact, brown rice provides more than 30% of total dietary calories to over 4.5 billion people in the world. As nutritional value and quantity of this crop continue to decrease, so does the nutrition of billions of people. The second reason for global warming concerns is that as the availability of brown rice decreases, consumers look to buy other equally cheap and equally caloric dense foods. This has led to the increase in the meat and dairy industry. Since 1975, milk production in the United States alone has grown by 45%. In this same time period, the meat industry's output has nearly quadrupled. While this increase gives billions of people access to cheap and filling foods, it's also been contributing negatively to their health. This trend of increased dairy and meat production has matched the increase in cases of heart disease, strokes, diabetes, cancer, and other non-communicable diseases. For instance, the CDC claims that the number of diabetes cases has increased from 4.5 million to 23.35 million cases from 1975 to 2015. The third reason for global warming concerns is that brown rice is high in fiber. Fiber is an essential nutrient derived from plant-based foods that cannot be completely broken down in digestion. This allows essential nutrients to be delivered to all parts of the gastrointestinal tract and feed the entire microbiome in the gut, even microbes that are living in the lower gastrointestinal tract. With that said, as brown rice consumption continues to drop with global warming and dairy and meat consumption continues to increase, people aren't consuming an adequate enough amount of fiber in their diets. In order to understand the health consequences this low-fiber diet transition has for individuals, we must understand the composition of the microbiome. Basically, the microbiome is made up of 3 main types of gut bacteria: Prevotella, bacteroids, and Ruminococcus. Prevotella can be considered the good class of bacteria. These bacteria are known for their anti-inflammatory and protective effects. Plus, their concentrations are higher in those who consume diets high in fiber. On the other hand, bacteroids can be considered the bad class of bacteria when in high concentrations. In high concentrations, these bacteria are known for their pro-inflammatory effects, leading to heightened risk of metabolic syndrome and other pathogenic conditions in their hosts. They're also found in greater numbers in the microbiomes of people who follow a typical American diet, such as those who eat in excess of dairy and meat. Finally, Ruminococcus can be considered the good class of bacteria as well. While their overall impact on the host is not as significant as Prevotella and bacteroids, they're highly prevalent in the gut of those who eat fruits and vegetables, or foods high in fiber, consistently. So, how does the composition of these bacteria promote the best microbiome and therefore the best overall health for an individual? The answer is the composition that generates the most short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain fatty acids are the product of the fermentation of indigestible foods, or foods that are high in fiber, by microbes in the gut. When short-chain fatty acids are in high composition, then the digestive health of an individual will be better. With this said, the microbial composition that will lead to the best overall health for an individual will be the one with the highest Prevotella and Ruminococcus. This will allow the microbiome to best process fiber and create short-chain fatty acids. On the other hand, high levels of bacteroids will lead to increased levels of TMAO and secondary bile acids that compromise the health of individuals.
With all these negative effects, which are exacerbated directly by a bad diet high in calories, as well as the secondary effects that that diet has on the human microbiome, it's clear that we need some solutions. Based on what we've already seen, it's clear that eating healthier diets higher in fiber would be extremely beneficial. However, getting people to move their eating habits away from a typical American diet is difficult. This is being made worse by the changes in climate and CO2 levels that are making some plants like brown rice harder to grow. So while we should continue to push for healthier eating, it's worth asking, what other options might we have in fighting problems of unbalanced gut bacteria? The fields of biotechnology and synthetic biology may have some solutions. If we can't get people to change their habits enough to naturally alter their gut bacteria into healthy balance, perhaps we can artificially engineer it to be a desirable mix of bacteria that will lead to better health outcomes. One method that's being explored is manipulation of quorum sensing, which is the way that bacteria naturally communicate with each other. By genetically engineering E. coli bacteria to produce excess of a quorum sensing molecule called autoinducer 2, AI2 for short, scientists were able to disrupt the growth of bacteroidetes, one of the types of bacteria which can often overgrow and cause microbial imbalance in the gut. When introduced into mouse digestive systems, this modified E. coli caused levels of bacteroids to significantly decrease. Another angle being explored is using bacteriophages, viruses that infect bacteria but not eukaryotic organisms. Scientists have been able to modify the genomes of these viruses to target specific types of bacteria that might be overpopulating in the gut, such as the Bacteroides family. These viruses were shown to be able to kill significant amounts of the types of bacteria that they were targeted to. These methods might be able to help lessen the problems that come from an imbalance in the microbiome, whether that imbalance comes from the use of broad-spectrum antibiotics, or if it comes from the issues that we discussed previously, with diet being a huge factor in the microbiome dysbiosis that many are suffering from currently. These methods are still being studied, and there are yet to be human trials with these sorts of treatments. They show promise, but scientists will have to do very thorough testing before the FDA will allow research to be applied to humans, which is important for safety. Genetic engineering techniques can also be used to help the microbiome indirectly as well, by modifying the way that agriculture is done and making it more robust in the face of climate change.
If the rice crops could be genetically modified to become more resistant to the viruses that plague them, a higher fiber diet could be supported for more average Americans and other nations that use rice as a staple food. GMOs have been previously demonstrated to promote soil health and are being currently researched in roles to grow crops with less nutrients. If the crop viruses could be avoided, or more nutrients could be extracted from the soil, there is a chance to reverse the damage done by climate change and the overuse of soil.